Chapter 13. Cam sat on the ground, poking at the fire with a stick. Hey. Maggie sat onto the ground beside him.
How long was I out?
About an hour.
You promised you wouldn't tell anyone.
While thoughts of how he'd convince her to move in with him raced through his mind, her thoughts centered on reassurance that the sadistic, inhuman, perverted defiling of her perfect and soft body remained a secret.
You'll keep your promise?
Yup. When she started to get up, he grasped her wrist. It wasn't your fault. Maggie nodded. Resisting the urge to roll his eyes, Cam climbed to his feet. Together, they packed up camp with little conversation. Why don't you take the lead?
Okay.
He slung her backpack over his shoulder. I'll take this for a while. She scowled.
Don't treat me like
He palmed the side of her face. A girl. Stepping around her, he trekked up the trail. I'm carrying it, and that's the end of it. Maggie jogged past him and stood in his path. She smacked her palms on his chest and shoved. He threw up his hands, palms out. Don't do this. The tough girl act doesn't work with me.
It's not an act.
He brushed a lock of hair from her face. You won't win this one, my little hellcat, but I'm looking forward to the battle. Maggie reached for her backpack. He danced around her and up the path. A few yards away, he turned and waved her on. Come on, even Gramps don't walk as slow.
Give me my pride.
Why does somebody helping you hurt your pride?
It just does. Didn't it hurt your pride when I helped you with your red tape problem?
I admit I didn't like it, but it wasn't a matter of pride. He shook his head. I accepted your help, so accept mine.
The difference is you needed my help. I don't need yours.
That's where you're wrong. I'd have gotten the permits eventually, on my own. Cam continued along the trail, a backpack slung over each shoulder. We should get going. Cam dropped both packs in the trunk and climbed in the passenger side of Maggie's silver Cadillac. She took the dangling keys from his fingers and started the car. The ride home was quiet. No idle chatter. No goading or playful teasing. The spark in his little Spitfire was no longer explosive, reduced to smoldering embers. When Cam grasped her hand, she smiled and returned her attention to the road. Ah, hell. He rubbed his forehead. Why had everything changed? He wanted to spend the rest of his life loving her, and she wanted nothing to do with him. She chased him and caught him. Goal accomplished. She would move on. I'm not good at relationships. The uncensored words leapt from his mouth.
I had a good time. I hope we can still be friends.
Where was the fucking Jack Daniels when he needed it? Just give him a bottle. He'd swig the Tennessee whiskey straight from the tap. Pull over. When Maggie shifted to park, he clutched her head between his hands and took her mouth in a domineering kiss, a mesh of lips, teeth, and pure unadulterated lust. Maggie. Her name hissed from his lips, a plea of sorts. What exactly do you think is going on with us? Sweat rolled down the side of his face, his hands trembled. The moisture in his eyes evaporated. She smiled. No joy in the gesture, the same look she'd give a bird with a broken wing, struggling to take flight.
We're good. Call me if you want a good time.
Was she the whore those bastards treated her as? Was he just one of the many she screwed? Tomorrow, maybe even tonight, she might give herself to somebody else. She could be in another man's arms before dusk. As Cam's anger soared, he was reminded why he'd resisted a relationship with her in the first place. He'd spent 3 whole days with Maggie and never felt more out of control than now. A whole new level of fury and frustration hummed through him. If he stayed with her much longer, she'd be the death of him. He'd either end himself to avoid inflicting his rage on another, or he'd lose control and kill someone, most likely the first guy he found Maggie with, and die on death row. Cam forced the next words from his mouth, his focus on his boots. Friends, nothing more. I've stated that from the start.
We understand each other then.
Maggie shifted to drive and continued down the road. Why had he dragged her from the lake? He should have pulled the trigger, blown his head off, and let her drown. His soul would have rocketed to hell, but hell couldn't be worse than where he was right now. Maggie pulled in front of his house.
I meant what I said. Call me if you want to get together again.
Darting her focus forward past the windshield, she said,
Please get out. I'd like to go home, shower, and maybe take a nap.
The lock on the trunk popped. He lifted it and snagged his pack. Watching her car fade from his sight, he realized he'd never felt more alive than he did at this moment. Nobody could suffer this level of torment unless they were truly alive. His first instincts were correct. Death was a better option than life. Cam threw his keys on the table and plunked down on the faded blue sofa. He glanced at his grandfather and at the television, airing a show on dolphins. Jag strode in from the kitchen and sat beside him. Do tell. Sporting a mischievous grin, he nudged his shoulder against Cam. I don't want to talk about it. Try again. You know me better than that. Cam inclined his head at his grandfather. Hi, Gramps. He looked at Jags. Did he get the Namenda? Yes. And the other one. I can't pronounce it. Methylphenidate. Sure. Did you wait at least 30 minutes before he ate to give it to him? Sure. So, the hike. Tell me. Don't make me get the Otico. I have some in my truck. Otico? The gum that smells like a locker room? Cam winced. Grinning, Jag stretched his arm out on the back of the couch. I'm listening. Cursing, Cam popped from the couch, sprinted through the kitchen, and out the back door. He ran until he reached his S10 pickup. 3 years ago, it had died and rotted in his backyard ever since. Bracing both hands over the top of the driver's door, he hung his head. He heaved the piece of shit forward, let the vehicle fall back, and gave it another strong shove. Cam! Jags dashed from the house. Talk to me. Keeping his hands braced on the cab, he looked at his brother, determined he wouldn't succumb to Jags's whims. Not this time. The last thing he wanted was some psychobabble bullshit on how he wasn't dangerous to anyone and he was good for Maggie. He spoke his next words, enunciating each syllable, loud, clear, and slow. Go home. Jags's eyes narrowed. You fucked her, didn't you? A flash of heat exploded through Cam's body. Sharp jabs of pain needled the back of his skull. Cam charged toward Jags and slugged him across the jaw, thrusting him across the overgrown lawn. Jags lay still, curled on the ground. "Fight back, you pussy!" Jags licked the blood from his lip, got to his feet, and walked back toward the house. He glanced back. Kim cringed because he didn't want any more unsolicited advice or to talk. He wanted to break something, maybe even set something on fire. Jag spoke one word before he disappeared into the house. "Always."